Okay, I'm going. Because I like to have my notes. So I would just share a portion of the screen if it's okay. Here I go. I believe it's almost right. So can you see my screen over there? Yes? Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So my name is Ingrid Rocio Hernandez Cerdaña, and today I will be presenting my action research project. This study focuses on how integrating explicit language instruction in CLIL improves sentence accuracy and vocabulary retention in our students, focusing on third grade ESL classroom. That was my classroom at the moment. Okay. In my classroom, I noticed that students understood content topics like water cycle, but they struggled to produce complete sentences. That was something that while I was working with them, I noticed that they were understanding the content of the ideas and the main topics, but they weren't able to produce something accurate and something more elaborate. That often used fragments or relied on Spanish structures to continue with what they were trying to say. For example, water will go up when they were talking about the water cycle. So this led me to have my research questions that were the three main ones. What challenges do students have in sentence formation? What happens when explicit language instruction is integrated? And how does this affect teaching and learning? So talking about both sides. Regarding the context, this study was placed in a third grade classroom with my 23 students around A1 level. Some of them were a little bit above and some of them a little bit under the level, but they were around it. This was in a school that was implementing a CLIL approach, a program that we know most of the teachers know and private schools in Sinaloa. So that was the one that we were working with. It was in a hybrid learning environment because I started this, well, I developed this research project last year when we have all the environment in Culiacan that was not that good. So we were switching from face-to-face to online classes depending of the day. So that was something that was impacting too. And they were having the strong understanding of the content regarding the science that they were teaching, learning, and the social studies that they were having also, because those were the two clear subjects that they were working with. So they were exposed to English daily, but they still struggle to the language production, especially when forming complete sentences. They were always producing some phrases or parts of ideas that they were trying to communicate to others. The strategies and actions that I implemented were included the sentence frames that were just giving them something to complete or a prompt to start the sentence for them to develop their ideas. Vocabulary pre-teachings that were, for example, giving them some slides or flashcards for them to have different ideas of what was this. CCQs, where every time that I was working with vocabulary, I was implementing CCQs at the moments that I could and contextualizing. For example, just saying the complete sentence for something and leading them to deduce what was the meaning of each of the words or the new words that they were having. Also, we had mini lessons focused on grammar when I was explicitly telling them that we are going to focus on this type or this part of the speech of the sentence for us to continue developing these other sentences or these other parts. And we also had task repetition that once that we did one task, in another time or maybe at the end of the lesson, we redo that task for them to notice what was different after having the exposure and after having the explicit understanding of the grammar content that we were working with. The evidence that I had that I was working with mainly was the students' work samples that I was collecting different ideas they were working and sentences maybe that they were producing and written sentences most of the times. And this is to the, they has also the teacher observation notes. Every time that I had a class with this focus specifically, I make my notes over, or even if it was just jotting down something on my lesson planning. But after that, I try to put everything in order. The weekly reflective logs, I was comparing what happened during this week and the previous week to know how students were advancing in that form. And informal techniques, for example, if I had today working with one structure for them just to complete, I made like an informal checklist that they need to have this element and this element, but for the next class, it's not going to be the same because I am aiming for them to develop and be better each time they are working with. The key findings that I had are that at the beginning of the study, around 70% used incomplete sentences. They were really struggling with this, and they had frequent fragments and missing verbs. They were just telling me like the nouns or the main things, for example, like the other one that I said, water go up, and they were like ocean, water, hot, cold. They were not using sentence to link what they were trying to say. Um, After this, we had around 65% completed sentences. They were with different levels of complexity because some of them were just like simple sentences, but some of them could actually make different sentences that had two phrases joined to make a longer one. So that was something different that I found. And they improved the vocabulary also because they started to use different words that weren't used to once they noticed that they could say whatever they were thinking about the content. For example, over here, Ray come Klaus. That was something that they were telling me. And at the end, they could say something like Ray comes from Klaus when water evaporates. Taking in mind that they were having my help, right? Because this was just only in 4 weeks. So it's not completely independent, the work, but they were able to do it with my accompanied by me. And that's something that wasn't happening before, even if I was always at the moment in the class with them. How did I connect this research project with the questions? The results directly answer my research questions. Why? Because explicit language instruction helped me improve sentence accuracy. I did it with scaffolded supported vocabulary detentions was something different that I noticed that was helping and was improving with them. The scaffolding part that I did with the sentence frames, for example, with all the instruction that they were having and how I started to give them the independency to work alone sometimes and to revisit what they were doing. That was something that really improved in that matter. And this suggests that language development in CLIL does not happen automatically and requires intentional support. Even though we as teachers, once we started working with this program, we had some trainings about CLIL. Talking about myself, I thought that just for working with the content, they were about to learn the language. And that's something that I realized that wasn't happening, that I need to take a time and say, this is important over here. We're going to see this grammar topic. So let's take a time to analyze the structure, even though the main focus, to say it like that, the main focus is this content or is this type of topic that we are working with. We need to pay attention to the language that we are using because it's going to be repetitive in this kind of assignments that we have for this topic. So that was something that I was changing my mind, and an answer this happened over here. The impact that I noticed on my students, that was something that I wasn't expecting for, was the participation. It increased a lot once that they were confident in telling more things, in actually speaking and writing more what they were trying to say to other people. And that's something that I wasn't aiming for, or I wasn't paying attention at the beginning. So that's something different that I noticed. Once they started to make longer sentences, they were to say it like that, eager to participate, and they wanted to share what they were able to do. So that had another impact that I wasn't seeing at the beginning and wasn't my aim on the research project at the beginning. And on my teaching, this has the impact of actually put attention on grammar, to not assume that once that I already taught a concept or taught some content from my students, they already know the language or how the language was structured for them when we were using it. So that's something that completely shifted for me because I relied only on the materials and the time expected that the program told me to do. And I lost track on the fact that I am the one that is supposed to tailor every program with the group that I'm having right now. So that's something I have to shift it. And to balance between content and language, I know it's one of the principles of CLIL, but it's something that is not always easy to accomplish. So that's something that I had to keep in my mind and to be more intentional in my lesson planning, not only to cover what is produced in the program, but to go further and to think what can be the next problem for them, what is going to be needed for them to continue developing the level to another one in the English CFR. So that's something that I need to be checking to improve also in my lesson planning, not to be thinking in the moment that I'm teaching the class, but to try to think ahead of those problems. What's next for me? To continue using scaffolding strategies at every moment that I can, and aiming for them to be independent in the level that they are, not to put too much pressure for them, to gradually reduce support for independence, that's the main one, to differentiate instruction for varied levels, because as I said at the beginning, they are around one level. But even if they are in the same one, we have different levels in that level in the same class. So and that's only talking about the level. If we take the rhythm, the style the students they have to understand, to learn, the pace and everything, I need to incorporate different things to differentiate all of these elements and to refine integration of grammar within the content, to analyze which is the grammar that is essential in each of the context and the content that we are teaching, to focus and put the time it is needed for students to understand that piece, that structure, and how it is made, to go on and move on to the next level that we are working with. And the limitations that I had that I think that most of us are going to be finding is the short duration, to say it like that, 4 weeks, because we were working with those elements. Even like that, I think that we continued working with this because we are not just checking those 4 weeks and forgetting about everything. We continue seeing improvements and drawbacks, but in the actual process or some only these weeks, the content specific findings, because it was only for my group, it may vary if it's developed in another group. It can be a different response for them. So that shorten the idea to say like this something like global and it's going to apply to the same people, to all the people the same. And the teacher was a researcher because it's the first time that I developed something like this. And I do not consider myself an expert in this matter. So I think that I can have improvements. So it's something that I find like a drawback because if I believe the second time that I do this could be like more specific and with more elements, with more tools that I have to make this research project or another research project to develop it better and maybe with more time. So that's something I put over here on the limitations, just to say it like that. And that's the end of my behalf. In conclusion, I think this study shows that integrated CLIL in my classes is not going to improve my students' level of English just because they are working with CLIL, but we need to be intentional with grammar and we need to be specific. And that's all from my behalf. I'm happy to hear all your questions and comments.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Ingrid. Excellent presentation, excellent results.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
It was very nice to learn a lot of things from your experience and maybe some comments or questions that you have from your peers. So go ahead, guys.
Hi, Ingrid. Good afternoon. I got to hear most of your presentation, and it caught my attention because, well, we work with CLIL too at school, and what you're saying is totally, well, I share your point of view with this. We can't think or believe that students are going to understand grammar structures fully just by teaching with CLIL. So I found it very interesting. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Ingrid, I also have a comment for you. Great presentation. I also work with CLIL, and it's very difficult for students to understand um, the vocabulary that they're working with on the regular classes, plus the grammar structures that we are working or trying to teach them in English. But sounds like you're doing a great job. One question I have for you: was it difficult to implement like all these strategies for your students to be able to complete or create complete sentences while at the same time trying to accomplish the lessons objectives?
Well, yes, it was actually difficult, and I think that I was doing kind of this work before we got into this subject because I always try to develop this part. The program actually have like some squares around some pages, like focus on this thing, but it takes a lot of time. A lot of time. At least in my students, they always take a lot of time to understand and to develop these parts. Just talking about, for example, part of speech that wasn't in this research project, for them to analyze each part and they try to relate it to Spanish and how do I put it and which one go first and which one goes next and like that. It takes not only one class, it takes like two or three classes to actually start understanding the topic. And then to internalize and then to produce takes a lot of time. I believe that the main struggle that we can have is not the actual understanding, it's the timing that we are working with. At least with myself and I believe my colleagues around the school, that was the main problem because you need to move forward because parents are expecting to complete all the product, all the book, all the content, the platform, the extra work, and all those elements. And that's something that I found really difficult. But if you put aside those things, it's something that can be accomplished if we are not with that constraint in the time. So, yes, it was difficult, but I believe that it was because of the time, not because of the actual activity that we were doing. So, I think that that was the main idea of this.
Thank you, Ingrid. I totally agree with you. We have very limited time with the students and a lot of things that we need to go over.
Yes.
But again, great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid. Okay, anybody else has a comment or question? Salome,
I
go
have a
ahead.
question. I have a question. I didn't hear your whole presentation, but I think I caught enough. Like, and with the comments of my classmates, I'm able to know what I missed. So I would like to ask you uh, if you would like to have more hours of class, considering that part, because I totally understand that some books or programs are designed in an ambitious way. Like they want you to do a lot of things in a very short period of time. Like I already told you before that I work with AMCO, and an AMCO class normally it takes for us 2 hours. But for them, the way they design the classes and everything they want you to do, it's like to be the whole morning working with that. Okay, like if it was the first language of the students. It's like not enough to have only 2 hours per day. So would you like to have more time of classes so you can fulfill everything and accomplish everything you want?
Well, I don't think I would like more time because in my school we usually have students from two to three hours or 3.5 because it's half day Spanish, half day English. And I don't think it's bad, but for students it is a lot of time. Talking about emotionally and working, that's a lot of time working in the same language that is the second language. It's too difficult for them. It is too heavy for them to start working with something that they don't completely understand, and also with the content. What I would like is to have not that much content into the program, that to have the same level of English and the same complexity, but to divide it and to have more time to address one topic and then go to the next one, not like one a week or one main topic a month, maybe to work with the same topic 2 months to actually be able to fulfill everything about the content and the language and not just to be focusing on one. So that's something that I would like to have to reduce the content because they are also working with the same content, sometimes in Spanish. So it is like a review in English and it's something that can be improved. To just take the main content that has maybe new vocabulary in English or something that they are not going to encounter every time in English for to be actually exposed to something different.
I totally agree with you. And my dream is like we are able to choose what we want to teach according to what our students need. Like
Yes.
that I could be able to choose, like I want to continue with this or this one can wait, but we can't. It's my
Yes.
dream.
Yeah, that will be
Thank you,
amazing.
Ingrid.
You're welcome.
Okay, guys. Anybody else? Because
I just
actually, that was my question. It's very similar to Yuki, his question. But well, let's wait. Somebody else who wants to comment. Salome, go ahead.
yeah, it's more a comment. I feel the same way. Like CLIL is really good by reading it, but now teaching it, it takes a lot of our effort. And for students, I believe it's a little confusing because they don't know exactly what to do with the topics or grammar structures and everything. And about you saying how they were improving their sentences, do you think that it is really important to follow what the book says, or do you have to go out all the time? Because I feel like I'm always out of the book when we're teaching these type of platforms, and I feel bad. Like personally, I feel like, oh, I'm not like following the rules that the book is telling me. But sometimes I feel like we need to go out of that rule plan that the book has. And it's for me, it's a little tricky to think that we need to be out of the book all the time. So why don't we get out of that book? Right.
The
It's
book.
a fight that I have with coordinators and everything, because listening to everybody who has participated, I feel like we are in the same page.
Yes. And I think that we need to go out of the book and to get out of that frame constantly, not all the time, but just constantly, just because of the complexity. And it's something that I think we need to do. I remember that I was once teaching a first grade group that was in fifth grade in elementary. They were around 7 years old, and the aim of the class was to answer a KWL chart that I don't know if you have heard in the other ones, that it's something
Yes.
that you know, something that you would like to know, it's something that you learned. And I was thinking, like, they cannot do that even in Spanish. How are they going to manage to fulfill that in full sentences in English if they are just taking that content? It was with a different program, but I completely said, no, I am not going to put my students under this pressure. And I changed completely the activity because that was something unimaginable for me to do with first graders of elementary. So I constantly change what we are doing, and I think that is something that we must be doing. It's something different, and it's a struggle with coordination because we need to go with the program. But hopefully, they understand that we are changing the activity, not the goal. And that will be amazing if everybody thinks like that.
And I think it
Wow.
works for your research, right? At the end,
Yes.
you
Yes,
were
I,
right,
I
doing
I
it your
remember,
way.
yes, and I remember a lot of things because I've been working with CLIL like since I started, I believe, teaching, and that was like 15 years ago. And I was always with CLIL, but I never fully got it. I have never made my pieces with CLIL, and I haven't, but I'm trying to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Salome.
Wow, that's really great to know. Well, I'm learning with you as well some things, but basically, all of your group mates who asked the questions and made some comments, they clarified my doubts about your research as well. So basically, that I won't ask you any question then, because I already got the answers. So if you want, we can continue with the next student. Thank you, Ingrid, for your excellent presentation. Congratulations. And well, one thing that we could do, we have like 10 minutes. I'm not sure how much time you will spend on your presentation, and then we have questions. So my suggestion is to stop the presentation and come back with the same link in a moment so we don't get interrupted, okay? All right, so I'll see you in a moment.